All right, we are live. Hello, welcome back to Mississippi Family Homestead. Tonight we're talking about chickens and the biggest mistakes you can make when raising chickens.
When hatching chickens.
Hatching chickens, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Hatching chickens.
So we're going to talk about that tonight. And a lot of these mistakes I did make, and some of these mistakes I did not make. So these are mistakes that you don't want to do when you're hatching eggs. So if you're hatching eggs for the first time, here are some things that you do not want to make the mistake of doing when you're hatching eggs. Also, about hatching eggs, really, if you have a warm place to put your baby chicks, this is a good time to go ahead and hatch baby chickens. That way, by the time they get 6 months old, it'll be midsummer and they'll start laying eggs by then. You know, a lot of people decide to hatch their chickens in the springtime, but if you do that, your chickens won't lay eggs till the fall time. So, you know, that's just one thing that you might want to think about. If you have somewhere warm to put your baby chickens, you might want to start hatching them now.
But now let me ask you, isn't it a little more trouble though if you do them now?
It is, but that's what as long as you've got somewhere warm to put them, it's okay. They're going to be.
You do want to make sure you got somewhere warm.
Yeah.
If not,
if not, it's better to do them in the springtime. So anyway, so we're going to talk about these mistakes. So I know the number one mistake that you can do is to buy a cheap incubator.
And we have done that before.
Yeah, we did. We bought a cheap incubator. I think it was really cheap, like $20 or $30. It was only big enough to hatch just a few eggs, and it had no controls on there as far as temperature and humidity. You didn't know what your temperature was or what your humidity was, and it was really, really hard to hatch those eggs. So I did make the mistake of doing that, and I had actually ordered, hatching eggs from a hatchery, and they came in and spent, $100 on those eggs, and they came in, and I put them in that cheap incubator, and they just only two hatched, and that was just not good after spending that money on hatching eggs, from a hatchery, and then only two of them hatch. So that is the number one mistake that you can make. So do not buy a cheap incubator. We, what is the one that we use? We use the Nature-Right 360 is what we use. And
this is it right here.
Yeah, it works wonderfully. It has a candler on there. You can candle the eggs. I've never, ever had a problem with it. It has a temperature and a humidity control. You know what your humidity is. You know what your temperature is. And also, it turns the eggs. So that's one thing that I recommend. Do not make the mistake of buying a cheap incubator.
Yeah, you can get really commercial grade incubators too if you're going to get serious into it. But for us, this incubator works pretty good.
Yeah, and it's around $100. It's not really cheap and it's not really expensive. It works really, really well. If you want to get a commercial grade one, that's fine. If you're planning on going into a chicken business, you can get one of those. They just cost a whole lot more than the Nature-Right 360 does.
Nurture-Right 360, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, anyway, so this is us unboxing that and talking about all the different aspects that it has on it and how easy it is to do. So we do have several videos on how to hatch chicken eggs if you want to watch those.
Yeah.
So the other thing is the mistake that I made is actually the second thing is your humidity. And I've actually made this mistake even recently with my chickens. You have to make sure that your humidity stays to what it's supposed to be. You add water in these incubators, and they regulate the humidity on the incubator. Most of the time on the incubator, your temperature, you don't really have to worry about it. It's 99.5. But your humidity level, because it's controlled by the weather and the water that you put in it, is really, it's not controlled by the incubator. You have to kind of control that yourself. So if you let your humidity levels go really low while those eggs are in that incubator, it can affect how they hatch. And if it's really high, during the first 18 days, that can affect, whether or not they live or die too. So that humidity level is very important. With the cheap incubator, I had no control over it. I did not know what the humidity was. So therefore, I only had 2 chicks to hatch. So, and actually, I think I had a problem with they would pip. I think a couple of them would pip and then they just died in their egg because of the humidity. It was probably too high. So the humidity level is very, very important, and that's a mistake that I still make sometimes because I don't check the humidity level like I should, and it'll drop too low. And I think that does affect in the long run how many chickens you have to live and to hatch.
Now on this incubator, it's pretty easy to check the humidity.
It is pretty easy to
if
check.
that humidity, you can also buy the little thing.
Yeah,
We do have one of those also.
yeah,
if you
you can
double
buy
check.
one of those that regulate it, and you can put that in there to check your controls.
Yeah, to
for
check
the
the
humidity.
humidity sensor in there.
Yeah, but you have to make sure that you have your water level in there because it controls your humidity. So I have let my water level, get dry, and then therefore my humidity dropped, and that wasn't good for a hatch rate on the chickens.
Right.
So that's another mistake that I have made. Now, I've never really made this mistake, but one mistake that you can make is during the hatching process. If you are the whole process, you're not supposed to leave your incubator open, for a long period of time, because when they're hatched and they're not dried out, that can kill them, or it can affect the other eggs while they're hatching during that lockdown period on day 18 is when you're supposed to lock it down. And you're not really supposed to open that until those little chicks are fluffy and dry. And it can affect the other eggs while they're trying to hatch. It's just a real tedious process during that period when they're hatching. And then also, while you're doing your kindling or whatever, you don't want to completely take the lid off of your incubator and leave it off during the kindling process either. So that's a mistake that you could make. And speaking of kindling, that's also a mistake that you can make.
This is us candling right here.
Yeah. So, a lot of people think that you're supposed to candle the eggs every day, but there's no reason for that. We candle on day 7 and day 14, and we don't candle after that. Those dates tell you whether or not your baby chick is viable. It gives you the option to take, the eggs out that are not viable, and, so they won't bust in the incubator and contaminate the eggs. And on day 14, when you check them again, you're going to know if that baby chick is alive in there, and you can remove that egg if it's not. So those are just some things that you don't want to candle them every day. Some people do, but I just think it doesn't make a good hatch rate if you're candling them every day and handling them too much. There's really no reason for that.
Yeah. You don't want to get them in and out of the incubator, have them in that, the right climate.
Yeah,
during the whole thing.
It really is. And, it's amazing. I say this all the time. It's amazing that a mama chicken knows how to sit on those eggs and hatch them, and that humidity and all is correct. And most of the time, those eggs do hatch up under a mama hen, So to me, it's amazing that we have to sit here and put them in an incubator to get them to hatch.
They know a lot better than us.
Yeah, they do a lot better than us. And I guess that's just nature, But the other mistake that you can make is when you choose your eggs for hatching, there's a few mistakes that you can make. So the number one mistake that people don't realize is that you're not supposed to wash your hatching eggs at all. If you're getting them from a farm, you don't wash those eggs, because if you wash them, it rinses what they call the bloom off of the egg, and then they won't hatch. That bloom on the egg actually protects that egg. It protects it if you're just eating a farm egg. That egg will sit on the counter for up to 2.5 months and won't rot because it has that bloom on there.
It's actually made for that purpose.
Yeah, it's made for that purpose. So if that bloom is washed off, then the eggs, they won't hatch correctly. It protects the egg. So just know that. And then also, there's several things that you need to do when you're picking those eggs out. If you're getting them from a farm, make sure you don't choose, really dirty eggs. They need to be kind of clean. And it's okay if you want to gently wipe them off, but you never, ever wash them under running water, under anything, if you're hatching eggs. And you do have to let those eggs settle for a little bit. You need to put them in an egg carton, point side down, for at least 12 hours before you put them in your incubator. It just allows the egg to kind of settle down and adjust to room temperature, and then it can go into your incubator. Also, you don't want to use eggs that's been refrigerated, because sometimes those are not viable. So
is that why overseas somebody was in the UK actually hatched an egg and was able to out of the supermarket?
The UK, they don't have the same rules we do.
Yeah.
They don't wash their eggs when they go to a supermarket like we do here. So that's how come they're able to actually hatch an egg, from the supermarkets there. Their eggs are not refrigerated, and they just kind of are sitting on the shelf. Or maybe they had a farmer's market, where you buy eggs from a farm, and that's the reason they were able to hatch it. I know there's a big video about, I think it wasn't a chicken egg. I'm not sure what it was, but this man hatched, I think it was a quail egg. He hatched a baby quail, and he bought it from, a supermarket, and it hatched.
So if you did it from a supermarket here, I take it there's no chance of it hatching?
Well, I don't believe so. I mean, you could. It'd probably be 1 in, 100 chance that it might hatch.
But they're refrigerated.
Yeah. So they can, and then I guess it's the length of time that it's actually been refrigerated, because that kills the embryo.
Mm-hmm.
It won't grow if it gets to a certain temperature. So, that's another thing. So just make sure you're careful about selecting your eggs, and make sure you don't wash them at all. And let's see. So this is another thing, and I don't know if it's really a mistake, but it's something that people don't realize. Whenever the chicken eggs hatch, after those babies are hatched, your incubator does have a smell to it, and it will grow mold and bacteria after you hatch those baby chickens. It's not pleasant, but it's part of the hatching process. And I wouldn't necessarily call it a mistake, but it's just something that you need to know if you're hatching, baby chicken eggs. And you have to wash that incubator out and make sure that it's clean after you hatch those before you get ready to hatch anymore.
You probably wouldn't want to hatch them in your kitchen, where you're cooking or something.
You don't want to have them in an area, where you have food or anything like that, because it is, just like any birth, it's a messy process.
Yeah, it looks real pretty at first, and then it turns into a messy.
Yeah,
thing.
They are real pretty, as you can see. We've got some up on the screen that we hatched, and actually, up on the screen, I guess you can see that I'm holding the baby chick and trying to help it. That's another mistake that people make. You get all antsy and stuff about your baby chicks hatching, and, it takes them a little bit to get out of that egg. And a lot of people are like, they need to help, that baby chick hatch out of the egg, but that's something that you don't want to do. Now, what we did when we were helping this baby chick is it actually had been hatched for a few hours, and its little umbilical cord was still attached to its eggshell, and it was just dragging its eggshell around. So once it got a little bit dried off and a little bit fluffy, I took it out of the incubator and I cut the little eggshell off of it, and it was fine after that. But you don't want to actually help a chick out of an egg unless it's been trying to hatch for more than 6 or 7 hours. Then you can help it.
Have you ever hatched one helped one?
I have helped one. We had one time, and it was I don't know, the egg was really big, and I guess the baby chick was just kind of too big to hatch out of that egg, and it had done what you call the zipping process, and it had went all the way around that egg, and it wasn't doing anything. It wasn't coming out of that egg. Now, once they do that zipping process, it's supposed to come out of there in just a few minutes. It doesn't take it long at all, up to 10 maybe, once it's zipped all the way around that egg. But this little baby chick was really, it was just kind of stuck there. So I did take that baby out, and I had my tools or whatever, and I had some tweezers, and I kind of helped it hatch out of that egg. And it was fine after that. But it was like I don't know. I think I probably shouldn't have used that egg. It was probably too big, which goes back to make sure that, you don't use odd-shaped eggs or anything deformed on them either. You know, I think that was probably my mistake. I shouldn't have used that egg to hatch a chicken.
So are these the Silkies that we hatched? I can't tell.
No, those are not the Silkies. Those are the Polish chickens that have the feathers on top of their head. They're actually bigger now. These are the ones that we just hatched. And then the other ones, I forget what they're called, but they're bantam egg chickens too. But those are kind of gotten bigger now, and pretty soon we're going to have to put them in with the Silkies probably.
Yeah.
So we need to get rid of some of our roosters that we have with our Silkies.
Yeah, the roosters have to go.
Yeah. So, and which brings me to another mistake. So you have to be able to do something with the roosters that come out of your your hatching process. So have a plan for those roosters. You can't have too many roosters to hens, or it will affect your egg process. They fight. It's just not good to have too many roosters. Excuse me. So that's something that you need to do too, is have a plan to have something, that you either sell them, you'll have to cull them, or, separate them, have you just a rooster flock, anything like that you can do, but just know that you have to have a plan to do something with your extra roosters.
Yeah. So, and it's, that's one of the hard things. If you have too many roosters, it's, you have to do something with them.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you can give them to somebody, but it is hard if you're going to have to cull them.
Yeah, it is.
We've gotten real sensitive this day and time. Used to, that was
that was just what you did. So it's hard for me to do that. I have to sell them or give them away or something. I don't like to have too many roosters, and we do have that problem with our Silkies right now, and I've got to get rid of some of those roosters. Hopefully I can sell them or something.
Mm-hmm.
I won't have
give
to
them away.
Give them away or something. I would not kill them, cull them.
What are you going to do for them?
I don't know. I'm going to try to sell them. I did put them in the paper, so maybe.
We have the farmers market paper. What is that called?
Yeah, it's the Mississippi Farmers Market paper that we get here, and I did put it in there. I actually put it in there for a price, so maybe I hadn't heard anything. So I may put them in there just for free and see if I hear anything from that. Hopefully I can do something.
I think that's one of the biggest disadvantages of hatching chickens is you never know how many roosters you're going to have.
No, you don't. And it varies. People say that you can pick out the ones that are round and that's going to be your hens, but that's just an old wives' tale, and that's not true. You just never can tell. I mean, I've hatched them before and had half and half. I've hatched them before and I had more hens than roosters. You know, these silkies, there's more roosters than hens. I think there's only 3 to 4 hens out there right now with all those, and there's 8. So, got to do something about the roosters.
Yeah, they've got to go.
Yeah, so that's one thing, you know, when you're hatching them, just be prepared for those kind of things, you know, for future. You know, you're not just, you know, hatch them and not have anywhere to put them, or don't have a, you know, a place to put your roosters. You know, you got to get rid of them or something.
Yeah. So we do have that problem right now, but
We do.
you know, this is a video of us hatching chickens earlier this year,
Yeah, yeah. So
and aren't they cute? Aren't they?
they are.
So, but hopefully that'll help you if you're looking at hatching chickens. You know, and like you say, I think most people hatch them in the springtime.
They do hatch them in the springtime, but I've found that I like hatching them kind of in the winter because I do have somewhere, you know, warm to put them, and they start laying eggs, you know, by midsummer, and that's
And we need
the
that
point
because
of
we don't
most,
have any.
Yeah, that's the point of most people, you know, hatching their own chickens is they want them for eggs.
Yeah.
So
So, and if you've got any other thoughts on mistakes you've made hatching chickens, let us know in the chat. We like
Yeah.
to check that chat all the time. So, you know, just let us know. Tomorrow we may make a campfire since tomorrow's New Year's Eve.
yeah,
and be
we'll make
out
a
there,
campfire and maybe
just
we'll
talk some kind
do
of
some-
homesteading talk.
yeah,
or
marshmallows and some hot dogs
Yeah.
or something.
we might talk about chickens again.
Yeah, we'll
So,
see.
Yeah. So hope you can join us then. And we're trying to do this live stream weeknights at 7:30. So if you have something you want to talk about, just let us know in the chat.
And
And-
we'd love to hear from you. Now our cat Missile decided to join us
Yeah.
tonight. He loves chickens too, but we also are sure that, you know, he never is alone with the chickens when we hatch them, but he loves doing that. He loves when we hatch the chickens, and he likes to watch them in the brooder after we've hatched them. But he wanted to be here so he could talk about hatching chickens because he
Yeah.
likes it.
That's his favorite thing to do.
Yes,
So,
it is. He gets excited. He'll go, you know, when I start putting the eggs in the incubator, he'll come look, you know, to see what's going on. And he's like looking at the eggs in there. He'll come check them out. He does do bad things like drink the water out of the incubator. You know, I'll walk in and he's drinking water out of the incubator. And I'm like, Missile, no, that's not your
but
water.
it tastes better, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe it does. I don't
Yeah.
know. It is bottled water that I put in the incubator.
And he loves to just lay there. He'll lay there for an hour or two and just watch those chickens.
Yeah, he'll watch the baby chickens in the brooder. And, you know, of course, we have a top on it. He can't get in there. But he likes to sit
We
there
still
and just
watch him, even though it's
Yeah.
got a top.
Yeah, we'll sit there and he'll sit there and just watch them for hours and hours. You know, he loves them. So hopefully this has been helpful for y'all, and let us know in the comments if y'all are planning on hatching chickens. Yeah, I just love it. I think it's awesome. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
And thanks for watching. Hope to see you tomorrow night. And Happy New Year.